Okay, greetings Minecrafters. That's how we always start out here. I'm excited to have this video cast episode, and so let's get going. I have with me my friend who I've talked about several times, more than a few times on these Minecraft podcasts, Dr. Tom Myers, and we'll just do a quickie. What he's about? He's about a lot of things. He's a very interesting guy. Today we want to talk about spirituality and belonging and young adults.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And he and I will just throw this out there. He and I are going to do a workshop on this coming up. So it's kind of like a little bit of a pre-workshop chat.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for having me here. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful. Yeah. So I think conversation today is kind of around the idea of how spirituality connects with belonging.
Mm-hmm.
A lot for young folks and coming out of the pandemic, boy, it's
Oh my God,
just
yes.
sent everyone into a tailspin.
The isolation.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of young people then with this isolation resort to social media or resort to
for sure
Netflix or anything on TV
Yeah.
to kind of escape that. But certainly the social media piece. And I don't know if it's the FOMO piece,
Right.
I wish I were outside, I wish I were in the Caribbean, or I wish I were in, somewhere in the Polynesian Islands. Or this other level of communication is that this misery loves company, where everyone is talking about how miserable they are on social media. And certainly we all feel that. But sometimes do you wonder, does that exacerbate more of it?
It's funny you say
Think
that,
about
Tom. No, it's funny. Tom and I have known each other now for a while. We've gotten wonderfully close talking about all these.
And we'll talk about our
Awesome.
workshops too.
What?
I want to talk about our workshops as well.
Oh, totally. But the misery loves company
Yeah.
thing, Tom, I've mentioned it on a few videos because it's misery loves company. Misery loves company. It's really, in reality, misery loves miserable company, right? The good vibes out there, the positive folks that are practicing positivity as part of their lifestyle, there's generally like sort of a force field that kind of pops up with that. We're not as interested. So what do you think about the draw to that and getting sucked in?
Yeah, and the kind of that, I wouldn't say schadenfreude, but the reveling in other people's misery, and but I think we're all kind of feeling miserable. So the aspect of getting, I guess that when I bring this up is like how you can go down that rabbit hole, getting sucked in.
Oh, so easy, right?
Sucked into it, like, oh my
So
gosh.
easy.
There's another outbreak or a new variation of COVID, it's the Delta and, whatever else is coming next. Like, oh my gosh. And I think the fact that we're almost feeling out of it, during last summer when, okay, we're kind of coming out of it, and then the Delta, hits in the fall and just everyone goes back. So, and human beings are, as we know, we're social animals. And, the one kiss of death is in early, human civilizations, the outcast from the group. Essentially that equated to death. If you're not in a group, hunting, gathering, sharing in the rewards and sharing in the survival, you're outcast alone, and it really is a death sentence. So I think this feeling of not being in connection with others and in concert with others as we normally had been before the pandemic, and then you really feel alone. It's just it just does detrimental stuff to the psyche, because we crave this being together.
I agree with you.
The belonging piece.
I was just, Tom, when you were saying that last bit there, it had me thinking of Brene Brown's work too. She sort of defines. I know you're familiar with Brene's work too. How the fitting in and the belonging are different. How the fitting in thing, that need to fit in, is more kind of egoic and changing who we are to match whatever, versus that genuine sense of belonging, of actually authentically feeling like we're part of something. What do you think about how that plays in social media too, especially?
Yeah, and social media just can, because that's 24/7 and
Right.
incessantly, it doesn't stop. You can't, and again, you can when you're alone, what do you have? You have some, technology, you have some, cell phone that you're kind of following. So I think it's hard to escape that. And what I found very interesting is some work done by, I love this book, which is called The Power of Meaning.
Yeah.
And finding fulfillment in a world obsessed with happiness, by Emily Esfahani Smith. You'll be using that in our class as well. But she talked about one of the first of the 4 pillars, and one of the first, not in any order, but of belonging. And no matter who you are, you have some sense of belonging to a family or to a group or to some sort of social connected group. And in the book, she described the story of this young man who was in a group that was a small kind of it was a medieval reenactment group, and he had some mental illness and didn't show up and contemplated suicide. And I think his cohort of friends, this very tight, small group of friends in this, learned about this. And what I think was telling was that how upset the group was that he would have abandoned them and he would have left this group. And they were saying, we would have been so sad, obviously so sad, because you're a vital part of our group. When you feel you're not worth anything, you have your self-image is so low, you don't realize the panoramic, emanation of how you are to others and how valued you are. He really didn't know how valued he was to others, but it was really telling when they, came back and said, "Oh my gosh, we would have been devastated if you had, if you had followed through and been successful in suicide." So it just is interesting, kind of going both ways of how you feel individually as yourself, and are you feeling like you contribute to other people's happiness and well-being. And I think we do a lot more than we realize. We probably tell ourselves we're not worth it. It isn't worth it. No one would miss me anyway. Oh my gosh, but then you realize how important that is.
Right.
To have that connection, and people do value you so much more than probably you value yourself.
Has me thinking It's a Wonderful Life, actually, at the Christmas
Isn't
special.
it?
But I'm thinking, actually, Tom, too, because Tom and I both teach and have taught at Champlain here. And, currently across the country, as you're well aware, depression and suicide are just, they're up there, And so with with the young adults. Epidemic, right. And so, the depression all on its own is so far up there. And then, like you're saying, with the not realizing, you were so eloquent, so poetic with how you said that, with, basically how we touch so many lives that we don't understand. I'm wondering, Tom, you're a scuba diver too, right? So I'm wondering, sometimes when do you think when the young adult gets in the throes of that depression, there's kind of like when a scuba diver dives too fast, down too deeply, they get the bends.
Other way around.
Is it the way around?
Yeah.
When they come up.
But if you go down too quickly, obviously your head's you're going to get the squeeze, and it's going to be incredibly painful.
Tell me if this is correct, because you're the expert on it. That they get so disoriented they have to blow bubbles to know which way is up.
Yeah, so the vertigo, you can get turned upside down, so you don't know what is up, what's the surface, and what's the. So if you watch your bubbles.
That's how you know which end is up.
If the bubbles are going down, you're upside down.
You're upside down.
So you're watching the bubbles, obviously surface. So it gives you an idea where.
So it's what orient.
Yeah. So the disorientation and vertigo, where you just totally lose, you have no spatial relation, you have no reference.
Right.
And and you're kind of in an inner space in the water. So you have to watch where the bubbles.
So you don't know which way is up. You have to watch the bubbles. So I'm wondering, Tom, with being in the throes of depression, if this is a really sort of a metaphor. When people get because you're saying I don't know how valued I am, and because sometimes people will judge and say, oh, they're so selfish. How could they have done that? They're not selfish. They don't know which way is up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I thought that might be a metaphor that works here, kind of. That people, it's not a vertigo issue, but it's an emotional vertigo. out of whack, out of balance, can't see I'm not clear about my value.
And I love the metaphor of oxygen bubbles, no matter how small
Right.
they are, but they can, they can emanate out. And again, however small you feel and however small your impact you feel is,
Right.
how small, it's going to be seen and affected by others.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's and that's a really good point, Kim, because you don't realize what is that telltale sign that people can give to others, in that that can be this signal that not they need help, but in a signal in a way that you're showing your value. I think one way that those bubbles could be is service to others, in a way that you're giving to others somehow. And I think that's one of the areas that can help with feeling lonely or feeling depressed. And again, I'm oversimplifying.
Right. But that's so Gandhi.
See
though.
a way that just your little bit of
Mm-hmm.
yourself you're giving out to others, and then that response of how that's received and given back.
Right.
I think it's exponential. You can give a little, and I think
Oh, no
there's
question.
so much that that can come back to you.
Spiritually speaking, I'm just totally paraphrasing Gandhi to the hilt here, but and didn't he say something about also for the person who's feeling blue, that, and not to simplify, it's obviously more complicated than this, but we get so stuck in our heads when we do something good for someone else, it also pulls us out. And Gandhi used to say, if you're feeling, blue, again, there's a whole spectrum of that, right? Then it can actually help the person who's not feeling valuable to feel better.
Yeah, I think absolutely that helping other people in the service to other things or other people, even if it's helping, again, nice other people, but helping the environment or somehow that you are assisting and supporting something you believe in. But yeah, it is to the connection with people and belonging and service and offer to others. It's do you think people overthink it too much and think, oh no, my service has to be huge, I have to make
Like
it.
the Peace Corps or something.
Yeah.
No. I mean, yeah, I think they do overthink it. Help somebody carry groceries who's
Exactly, yeah.
8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Just offer. Maybe she's fine, but just offer.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at just holding the door open.
Right.
For someone, like carrying bags or carrying, hey, I got this for you. Oh, thank you so much. And I wonder if there's a need to return to the feeling of that
Connection,
service
right? Yeah.
to others.
Community.
And one of the classes I taught was called Purpose, Meaning, and Happiness. And I think students started to feel as though, oh, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to learn to be happy. And that is again, happiness at the end. But that I'm going to take this class and I'm going to be happy.
Right.
And we understand that happiness is fleeting. You're not 100% happy all the time, 24/7, right? Comes and goes. But happiness is a byproduct of that purpose and meaning.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I found that students throughout the semester realized, oh my gosh, it's the little things. When one student wrote about a woman who dropped groceries in the store and she helped pick them, help women to pick them up, and how good that helped her to feel. Just a minor little piece. But I think progressively and cumulatively, as that builds more service to others, that it can give that sense of well-being and a sense of happiness.
Oh, totally.
That's back to that belonging and connection.
The belonging connection thing. Because I'm also thinking what comes to mind right now is the Seligman's The Good Life, right? The pleasure's here. We're not saying don't have a good burger, whatever, because we need that too. And then, of course, the flow.
Yeah.
And then, the meaningful is the most long-lasting, just like you're saying, the longest-lasting good feeling that there really can be.
Yeah.
So the belonging piece, how do you think the belonging piece can maybe stave off, even prevent depression.
Yeah, and it can obviously
True
be hard.
belonging.
Yeah, when the levels of depression and mental illness where you just cannot be with other people, don't want to be with other people, and obviously it's sometimes easier said than done. But I think having this circle of belonging where people are a little bit are tied into how you're feeling and connect, and where your state of mind is. And I think that's having friends or having family that can be connected with you. But I think the isolation piece, again, back to the pandemic, it forced everyone to be really was incredibly difficult. And coming out of that now, I think we learned a lot about the continue to be connected. But yeah, I think it's
well, the isolation and speaking of epidemics, I don't know if we're talking about pandemics, but epidemics, the loneliness thing. I was reading not too long ago that loneliness, at least in the United States anyway, has been bumped right up with obesity, and smoking for leading causes of death, with heart disease. Like, loneliness is actually up there with smoking and all the heart disease stuff. I mean, that's wild to me.
Exactly. Yeah, and the Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, who was under the Obama administration and brought back under the Biden administration, when he took the role as Surgeon General, he went out across the United States and he wanted to get a kind of a handle on what was going on out there, what are the issues, and he fully expected it to be the opioid crisis, which obviously is huge. Obviously, it's a major thing. But what he found, it was that, but more so was the loneliness piece, and the feeling of people feeling lonely. And one thing he said that really struck me, and this is a lot with men, and obviously men and women across the United States, but he was referring to one part about men, and that if a guy wakes up in the middle of the night, 3:30 in the morning, that very few have that one friend that they could call if they're in a crisis. Right. And was I thought Surgeon General Murthy just thought that was really telling, in that you don't have a go-to person, when you're in need. But yeah, you go look at the level of maladies and sickness and illness that being the sense of loneliness that can
it's a killer.
Cause. Yeah.
It's actually, I'm thinking of, just watch the time here, because we're going to do another we're going to do another little segment too. It has me thinking of that famous Harvard study, the longitudinal one, right?
The longest in history.
The longest in history.
Yes, yep.
And basically the bullets in bold of that study were just what you're saying, it's that number one, to have one person, you're pretty set. If you have two or three of those, you're really golden.
Yeah.
Where you could wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they could also wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You might need to get oriented for a cup of tea or something.
Yeah.
But and that they wouldn't, also that they expanded a little bit, I think, where you could tell them, kind of let them in your rib cage, tell them what's cracking your heart down the middle, knowing that information was safe, that that it's confidential, you're not going to say anything, and that you could count on them no matter what. And even just one of those people, and I forget the stats too, but the longevity goes up like miles. And he also said, the man I'm thinking of, I think he was the second, I don't know which researcher he is, but he's towards now, sort of current. He said that it's a quality, not quantity of relationships, right?
Yeah.
So staying in a marriage when it's toxic has the reverse effect. It's those positive, we're not saying perfect either, positive people that you can count on no matter what.
Yeah, and that being the common denominator for longevity is having this circle of friends or circle of as you say, quality relationships.
Yeah, more important than not eating Twinkies.
True. Oh, Twinkies are good, right?
Yeah,
Anything in moderation, right? Balance, right?
Balance, and so so I think Tom and I are actually going to continue our discussion. So we'll go ahead and sign off for right now.
Okay.
Be right back.
Be right back.